It was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, a 40th birthday party, surrounded by friends, family, and the man she thought loved her more than anything. But what happened next would leave everyone in that room speechless and destroy a marriage that had lasted 15 years. This is the story of how one man played his wife's cheating video on a large screen at her 40th birthday party, and why he doesn't regret it. David thought he had the perfect marriage. For 15 years, he and his wife Lisa built a life together, a home, two beautiful kids, and a future that seemed unshakable. Beneath the surface, cracks were forming, and David was about to discover a truth that would shatter everything. They met in college, two young dreamers with big plans. David was the quiet, steady type, while Lisa was the life of the party, always drawing people in with her charm and wit. They balanced each other perfectly, or so he thought. Their love story was the kind people envied. They traveled the world, built careers, and raised two amazing kids. But somewhere along the way, things started to change. The late nights at work, the missed anniversaries, the quiet dinners where neither of them had much to say. David noticed the distance, but told himself it was just a phase. Every marriage had its ups and downs, right? But deep down, David knew something was wrong. Lisa had become distant, spending more time on her phone and less time with him. She started going out with friends more often, coming home late with excuses that didn't quite add up. David tried to ignore the signs, but the doubt gnawed at him. And then, one night, everything changed. It was just an ordinary night. Lisa had gone to bed early, leaving her phone on the couch. David wasn't the type to snoop. He trusted her completely. But when her phone buzzed with a notification, something made him glance at the screen, and what he saw stopped him cold. The message was from a name David didn't recognize, but the words, they were unmistakable. His heart raced as he unlocked the phone. Lisa had always used the same passcode, a symbol of the trust between them. And what he found next shattered that trust forever. David stared at the phone, his heart pounding. The message was from someone named Alex. He didn't know anyone by that name, but the words were clear. Can't wait to see you again. Tonight was amazing. His mind raced. Who was Alex? And what had happened tonight? Lisa had told him she was going out with her girlfriends for a girls' night. She'd been excited, even asking David if her outfit looked okay. He hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now, as he scrolled through her messages, a sickening feeling settled in his stomach. The texts went back months, flirty messages, inside jokes, and plans to meet up. There were photos, too, selfies Lisa had sent to Alex, some of them taken in places David recognized. The park where they used to take the kids, the cafe where they'd had their first date. Each discovery felt like a knife to the heart. David didn't know what to do. Should he confront her? Should he pretend he hadn't seen anything? He thought about the kids, asleep in their rooms, oblivious to the storm brewing downstairs. He thought about the life they had built together, the memories they had shared, and he thought about the man who had taken it all away. David couldn't help himself. He had to know who this man was. He searched Alex's name online, piecing together bits of information. Alex was younger, good-looking, and worked in the same industry as Lisa. They had met at a conference a few months ago, and apparently they had been inseparable ever since. David printed out everything, texts, photos, timestamps. He compiled it, all into a folder, labeling it evidence. He didn't know what he was going to do with it, but he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't let this go. Lisa had betrayed him in the worst way possible, and she was going to pay for it. The next few days were a blur for David. He tried to act normal, smiling at Lisa, helping the kids with their homework, going through the motions of their daily life. But inside, he was falling apart. Every time he looked at her, he saw the texts. Every time she laughed, he wondered if she was thinking about him. They had been through so much together, the birth of their children, the struggles of building a career, the quiet moments that made it all worth it. How could she throw it all away? How could she betray him like this? David wanted to confront her, to scream, to cry, to demand answers. Something stopped him. He wasn't ready to let go, not yet. Instead, he started digging deeper. He needed to know everything. Who was this man? How long had it been going on? And most importantly, why? What he found only made it worse. Photos of Lisa at places she'd never mentioned, messages hidden in plain sight, and a pattern of lies that went back months. Every discovery felt like a knife to the heart, but David couldn't stop. He needed the truth, no matter how much it hurt. And then, one night, it hit him. He couldn't just walk away. He couldn't pretend this never happened. Lisa had taken everything from him, his trust, his love, his future. It was time for her to feel the pain she had caused. It was time for revenge. David's mind raced with ideas. He wanted Lisa to feel the same humiliation and pain she had caused him. But he also wanted to make sure everyone knew the truth, her family, her friends, everyone who thought she was the perfect wife and mother. And then it hit him, her 40th birthday party. It was the perfect opportunity. Lisa had been planning the party for months, inviting everyone she cared about. It was supposed to be a celebration of her life, her achievements, her happiness. But David had other plans. He would turn her special day into a nightmare she would never forget. He started preparing, quietly, carefully. He gathered all the evidence, texts, photos, timestamps, and compiled it into a video that would tell the story of her betrayal in her own words, her own actions. He even added a dramatic soundtrack, ensuring it would have the maximum impact. But David didn't stop there. He wanted to make sure the moment was unforgettable. He rented a large projector screen, the kind used for weddings and corporate events. He arranged for it to be set up at the party venue, right in the middle of the room, and he made sure he had control of the remote. As the days counted down to the party, David played the role of the doting husband perfectly. He helped Lisa with the preparations, smiled at her jokes, and even bought her an expensive gift. But inside, he was counting the hours until the moment of truth. The day of the party arrived. The venue was decorated beautifully, filled with laughter and music. Lisa was radiant, glowing with happiness as she greeted her guests. But David could barely contain his nerves. He kept glancing at the projector screen, knowing what was about to happen. As the evening went on, Lisa stood up to give a speech. She thanked everyone for coming, talked about how blessed she was to have such a wonderful life. And then, just as she finished, David stood up. He walked to the front of the room, holding the remote in his hand. The room fell silent as he pressed play. The screen lit up, and within seconds, everyone's eyes were glued to the images unfolding before them. Texts, photos, videos, all of it, laid bare for the world to see. The room erupted in gasps, whispers, and shocked silence. As the video played, David scanned the room, his eyes landing on a man standing near the back. It was Alex. He had come to the party, thinking it was just another celebration. But now, as the evidence of his affair with Lisa played out for everyone to see, his face turned pale. He tried to slip away unnoticed, but the damage was done. The guests turned to him, their whispers growing louder. Alex was no longer just a name in a text message. He was here, in the flesh, and everyone knew who he was. Lisa's face turned pale. She tried to speak, to explain, but no words came out. David stood there, watching her crumble under the weight of her own betrayal. It was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment of revenge. The room was in chaos. Guests whispered to each other, some in shock, others in disbelief. A few tried to comfort Lisa, but she was too stunned to respond. She just stood there, staring at the screen, as the evidence of her betrayal played on a loop for everyone to see. David watched it all unfold, his heart pounding. He had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but nothing could have prepared him for the reality of it. The anger, the pain, the satisfaction, it all mixed together in a whirlwind of emotions he couldn't quite process. Lisa finally found her voice. She turned to David, tears streaming down her face, and begged him to stop. "Please, David," she said, her voice trembling. "I can explain. Just turn it off." But David didn't move. He couldn't. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment he had planned so carefully. He needed her to feel the weight of what she had done. The guests didn't know what to do. Some left quietly, not wanting to be part of the drama. Others stayed, watching the train wreck unfold. A few even pulled out their phones, recording the scene. It was a spectacle no one would forget. As the video ended, the room fell silent again. Lisa collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. David finally stepped forward, his voice steady but filled with pain. "This is the truth," he said. "This is what she's been hiding. I wanted you all to know." Among the guests were Lisa's parents, both church ministers who had raised her in the way of God. They stood frozen, their faces a mix of shock and disappointment. Lisa's mother clutched her chest, tears streaming down her face. "How could you do this?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "We raised you better than this." Her sobs grew louder, and Lisa's father had to lead her out of the room, his own eyes filled with sorrow. The sight of her parents' pain only deepened Lisa's humiliation, and she buried her face in her hands, unable to look at anyone. But as he looked around the room, David realized something. This wasn't just about Lisa anymore. It was about him too. The man who had planned this elaborate revenge. The man who had just humiliated his wife in front of everyone she cared about. What did that make him? The guilt started to creep in. He had wanted to hurt her, to make her feel the pain she had caused him. But now, seeing her broken and vulnerable, he wasn't sure if he had gone too far. Was this really the right way to handle it? Or had he just made everything worse? The party ended abruptly, with guests leaving in small groups, their conversations hushed and awkward. David and Lisa were left alone in the empty venue, the projector screen still glowing faintly in the background. The silence between them was deafening. The next morning, the kids noticed something was wrong. "Why is Mommy crying?" their youngest asked, tugging at David's sleeve. David knelt down, struggling to find the right words. "Mommy and Daddy are going through a tough time," he said, his voice breaking. "But we love you very much, and will always be here for you." The kids nodded, confused but trusting. David's heart ached as he realized how much their lives were about to change. Finally, Lisa spoke. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never meant to hurt you." David didn't respond. He didn't know what to say. The anger was still there, but so was the love, or what was left of it. He had just destroyed their marriage in the most public way possible. Was there any coming back from this? The days that followed were a blur. David and Lisa barely spoke, the weight of what had happened hanging heavy between them. The kids, confused and upset, could sense the tension, but didn't understand what had caused it. David tried to shield them from the fallout, but it was impossible to hide the truth forever. Word of what happened at the party spread quickly. Friends and family reached out, some offering support, others demanding answers. Lisa's parents were devastated, unable to believe their daughter could do something like this. David's friends, on the other hand, were divided. Some praised him for exposing the truth, while others questioned whether he had gone too far by notes. Lisa moved out temporarily, staying with a friend while she tried to process everything. She left David a letter, apologizing again, and asking for a chance to explain, but David wasn't ready to hear it. He was still too angry, too hurt to even think about forgiveness. Lisa sat alone in her friend's apartment, staring at the letter she had written to David. She thought about the choices she had made, the pain she had caused, and the love she still felt for him. Was it too late to make things right? She replayed the night of the party in her mind, the shock on David's face, the gasps from their friends, the way her world had crumbled in an instant. She had been selfish, she knew that now, but she also knew she couldn't undo what she had done. All she could do was try to make amends, if David would let her. Meanwhile, the video from the party went viral. Someone had uploaded it to social media, and it quickly spread, racking up thousands of views and comments. People took sides, some sympathizing with David, others calling him cruel and vindictive. The attention was overwhelming, and David found himself at the center of a storm he never wanted. David's inbox was flooded with messages, some supportive, others harshly critical. "How could you do that to your wife?" One email read. "You're a hero," said another. The attention was overwhelming, and it didn't stop there. News outlets picked up the story, turning their private pain into public spectacle. David's co-workers whispered behind his back, and Lisa's colleagues avoided her altogether. The fallout was everywhere, a constant reminder of the night that changed everything. As the days turned into weeks, David began to reflect on what he had done. Yes, Lisa had betrayed him, but had he gone too far? Had he become the villain in his own story? He thought about the kids, about the life they had built together, and wondered if there was any way to salvage what was left. One night, he sat down and wrote Lisa a letter of his own. He didn't know if he would send it, but he needed to put his thoughts into words. He wrote about the pain of her betrayal, the anger that had driven him to such extremes, and the regret he now felt for how he had handled it. He ended the letter with a question. "Can we ever move past this?" Lisa responded a few days later. She didn't make excuses or try to justify her actions. Instead, she acknowledged the pain she had caused and expressed her own regret. She told David she still loved him, despite everything, and that she was willing to do whatever it took to rebuild their relationship if he was willing to try. David didn't know what to do. Part of him wanted to walk away, to start over and leave the pain behind. But another part of him remembered the life they had built together, the love they had shared before it all fell apart. Was it possible to rebuild that trust, or was it too late? In the end, David decided to meet with Lisa. They agreed to talk, just the two of them, without distractions or interruptions. It was the first step, a small one, but a step nonetheless. Whether it would lead to reconciliation or closure, neither of them knew, but they both knew they couldn't move forward without facing the past. David and Lisa met at a quiet cafe, a neutral space where they could talk without distractions. The air between them was heavy with unspoken words and unresolved pain. For a long time they just sat there, sipping their coffee, avoiding each other's eyes. Finally, David broke the silence. "Why?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why did you do it?" Lisa took a deep breath, her hands trembling as she set down her cup. She didn't make excuses or try to shift the blame. Instead, she told him the truth about how she had felt neglected, how she had fallen into the arms of someone who made her feel seen, even if it was only for a moment. David listened, his heart breaking all over again. He had been so focused on his own pain that he hadn't stopped to consider hers. He realized now that their marriage had been crumbling long before the affair. They had both played a part in its downfall, even if they hadn't realized it at the time. Lisa reached across the table, her eyes filled with tears. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," she said. "I know I hurt you in the worst way possible, but if there's any chance we can start over, any chance at all, I want to take it. I still love you, David." David didn't respond right away. He thought about the kids, about the life they had built together, and about the love they had once shared. He thought about the pain of betrayal and the anger that had driven him to such extremes. And then he thought about the future, about what it would mean to walk away, and what it would mean to stay. Finally, he spoke. "I don't know if I can forgive you," he said. Not yet. But I'm willing to try. For the kids, for us, for the life we once had. But it's going to take time, and it's going to take work." Lisa nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'll do whatever it takes," she said. "I just want a chance to make things right." And so, they began the long, difficult journey of rebuilding their relationship. It wasn't easy. There were days when the pain felt too much to bear, days when they wondered if they were making a mistake. But slowly, over time, they began to heal. David and Lisa's journey was far from over. They had taken the first steps toward healing, but the road ahead was anything but smooth. The counseling sessions were grueling, forcing them to confront painful truths about themselves and their marriage. There were moments of hope, but also moments of despair when it felt like the weight of their past might crush them. And then, just when it seemed like they were making progress, something unexpected happened. A new piece of evidence surfaced, one that neither of them saw coming. It was a message, hidden in Lisa's old phone, that changed everything. The message was from Alex, but it wasn't what David expected. It revealed a secret so shocking, it threatened to unravel everything they had worked so hard to rebuild. David didn't know what to do. Should he confront Lisa? Should he keep it to himself and risk it coming out later? The trust they had been trying to rebuild hung in the balance, and one wrong move could destroy it forever. As for Lisa, she had no idea what was coming. She thought they had finally turned a corner, that the worst was behind them. But the past has a way of catching up with you, and this time it was coming for her. What was in the message? What secret did it reveal? And could David and Lisa survive this final test? The answers would change their lives forever. But that's a story for another time. I know you want to find out what happens next, so make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss part 2. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to share it with your friends. Your support helps us bring you more stories like this one. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.